Good. Well, a very good morning to you all. Now, let's just get this some reality into this presentation first of all. I'm not an expert. I don't know all of the answers. In fact, I've got more questions than answers. Someone had a song about that once, didn't they? So really what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you the journey that we're on in Swindon, sharing with you our thinking. I'm not saying it's the right thinking, but it's our thinking, where it has led us in terms of how we're positioning ourselves as a local authority, how therefore we're structured and what it is we're trying to achieve. But we are, like yourselves, on that journey of still asking questions all the time, knowing that actually is a big stretch for us around capability, because the aspiration I'll talk to you about at the moment, we're not there yet. We know we've still got quite a long journey to go. So don't for a moment think when you see some of these slides that this is a wise guru talking to you, because it most certainly is not. And if you don't like the content of my slides, I did ask one of our guys to kind of sex it up a bit, so you might like the bright orange background, at least there's nothing else. So, there we go. So, Stronger Together, this is our organisational response to what we're calling is our strategic commissioning opportunity, effectively. So it's an organisational response that we've branded Stronger Together, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Nothing really surprising here for you in any of these slides, very simplistic, slightly more optimistic than the Barnett-Groomer graph of doom, but it's just basically trying to show you, and more importantly really, my community and the staff as to why the world has changed and how we have to change and think about how we're going to change moving forward. So of course we know all the stuff simplistically about demand rising, money going down, and very importantly trust, actually, if not going down, certainly not improving. And trust is a critical element of what we're trying to do moving forward in our strategic commissioning approach. We know, of course, all these national policy changes which are forcing us to rethink about our role and how we respond to it. The rather depressed-looking chap on the blue graph there is trying to reflect the fact there's a recession going on. So, sorry, it's not a great graph, is it? And that lovely, lovely architectural feast in the middle is Swindon's town hall. And if any of you know Swindon, you'll know that we don't have too many nice architectural buildings, so we celebrate what we have. And the last bit, of course, is, and actually, very sadly, that's not actually our town hall anymore, it's our old town hall. We're in something less exciting than that. And the little blue circle on the right there basically just trying to reflect the fact that actually, of course, there's this big localist agenda as well. And all of those factors, for me, absolutely fundamentally impact on our thinking about, therefore, strategic commissioning. So I do apologise for this. I don't expect you to digest it all, because all the evidence tells you that no one can take in more than 7 words at any one time, and there's a lot more than 7 there, of course. But this is not necessarily right, by the way, but this is merely our definition in Swindon of what we're referring to as strategic commissioning. And a few things that I would just pull out of there. I want to talk a little bit about opportunity, because a lot of this has been built out of learning and, to a degree, frustration within my own organisation about things that we're not doing and mistakes I can see us making as an organisation. And I think one of the things we're missing is opportunity to do things differently, opportunity to leverage new resources that have been there, but actually we've never leveraged them properly. We've been a little bit like this in terms of how we approach commissioning as well. I'm very passionate about this, I don't know if it's the right term or not, whole systems view. Again, my experience has been at commissioning in Swindon historically. We've tended to commission in little chunks like this without any cognizance of an interconnected system that we're part of. So what we're trying to do is to broaden our horizons and define a much more holistic view so that we get a slightly more strategic and thoughtful approach to our interventions, where we do them, how we do them, and who we do them with. So that's critical for us. Equally, and I don't know if this reflects to you as well, I don't think there's enough thinking about, I suppose causality is a term I would use, but real thinking about, so what are the interventions that I can apply through commissioning that will make a difference? What I tended to find is that we've tended to do what we've always done because that's a perceived wisdom. And actually, I think that change environment that we see absolutely fundamentally challenges our knowledge base in terms of what really works, what doesn't work, and sometimes about what we're prepared to take a risk around, to experiment a little bit more. The other aspect I wanted to highlight was capabilities, because I think that's something we miss quite significantly within commissioning, because again for me around strategic commissioning, part of the process of commissioning is about how we improve capability, not just our own capability but that of a wider population as well, because fundamentally I believe that every single person has assets and we should build on people's assets and leverage them far more effectively as part of the commissioning process. Am I talking absolute nonsense, or is this striking a chord, if anybody? No one's thrown anything at me yet, so I'll take that as either disinterest or it's absolutely brilliant. Right, so moving on, I'll be watching Simon's tweets later to see what his view on it was. So again, this is ongoing. If I come back in 6 months, I might have changed this, and that's a really important aspect for me about our journey of strategic commissioning. It ain't cast in stone, it is a journey of learning. Very importantly, and this is a reality of working in a democratic organisation, it has to be able to reflect political aspiration. And again, I have seen some of the mistakes we've made in Swindon in the past, and it might strike you as rather curious, but actually we've forgotten that sometimes. We've approached it from kind of a technical perspective, rather than integrating an amalgam of political aspiration and ideology combined with other inputs as well. Pretty obvious, informed by evidence and insight, increasingly insight. I think by that I mean qualitative as well as quantitative, lived experience, real experience of people, service users in place. I fundamentally believe in co-production, co-creation, so I think a great commissioner needs to be inclusive and collaborative, and I think, again, that's about leveraging capability and asset, and I think you design more sustainable solutions when you do that. I don't see strategic commissioning as a function. I'm going to show you a functional diagram at the moment that completely cuts across that. But actually, I think strategic commissioning, in this sense, is what we do as a council. And by the way, when I say strategic commissioning, I don't mean outsourcing, just to clear that up as well. That's not what I mean by commissioning. I mean understanding what it is you're trying to achieve and therefore determining the best way of achieving that. It, by coincidence or by design, it may be with a private sector, in-house or whatever. So I don't come at it from that perspective, but I do come at it from the perspective that I actually do think you need plurality of supply and that you do need a rich market of supply, because I think that does help to create innovation. But it's a skill to do that, actually. I really passionately believe that there should be this continuous improvement feeling in your belly as a commissioner, in that actually every time it should aim to get better, because it can never be good enough. And I think that's a really important sense that I want to leverage in the organisation effectively. Flexibility is a really tricky one, and I haven't sussed that one out yet. So, for example, we have quite a lot of strategically commissioned contracts with partners, which at the time were great, but actually they're becoming a constraint now, because my world has changed, the world has changed, and the way I designed those contracts, taking personal accountability here, everything's my fault, which you'll find out, is actually how to commission it in a way that allows it to evolve and to change shape. And that's really hard, and I haven't sussed that one out yet, so that might be a really interesting discussion for us. And pretty obviously, if it doesn't contribute to positive outcomes, then why are you doing it in the first place? So let me give you a quick context now. I'm going a bit more into Swindon detail. We have this thing called One Swindon. Sounds very sexy and exciting, doesn't it? Very, very innovative. We couldn't think of anything better, really. But what we have been able to do, we're quite fortunate in Swindon, because you know the place, architecturally challenged it may be, but that it is well bounded. Actually, it has a real sense of identity in Swindon, and we have a lot of co-terminosity. Obviously, the PCT thing is changing now, but we have a history of very tight integration with the PCT, shared resources quite deep down into the organisation. And we're a unitary authority, which helps as well. So in a sense, we have those elements really quite within our control, so we can do stuff. So what we were able to do about two to 3 years ago is to negotiate with our partners and with large members of the community around one agenda. What is it that we want collectively to do for Swindon? Again, I'm not trying to sell you on something, oh, it's all marvellous and lovely and isn't it fantastic in Swindon, because it isn't quite like that. But actually we do have a shared sense of priorities, a shared destination of where we're trying to get to. Ultimately, we want it to take to shared business planning and resource allocation as well. That's a journey. Does that manifest itself as a community budget one day? Let's see if that's still part of the agenda for government moving forward. But there is a kind of presupposition there, this thing called place shaper, which I think is probably a bit unfashionable in some government terms now. I heard Simon being derogatory about it in having a coffee a bit earlier. No, I'm only teasing you, Simon. But actually, this was an important debate we did go through at the political level, because as that graph of resources going down, simplistically, there were two strategies politicians could have taken. One was retrenchment, i.e. just like this, head down, we're only going to be accountable, responsible for the things that we directly control. I'm glad they didn't take that route. They took the route that actually we are place, and that therefore we still maintain it is critically important that we influence others for the benefit of the place as a whole. So all of our strategic commissioning thinking and our organisational response to that is based on the assumption that we are interested in the whole place, not just a narrow bit that we're directly responsible for. Have I said anything yet that's hideous? No, I'd just like to keep checking, so, you're welcome to throw something at me. Won't dwell on this for too long, but this just talks a little bit more about One Swindon, what we're trying to do. So remember, this is our context for an organisational response. And this is our organisational response. So we spent we're not very quick at doing things in Swindon. We took over a year to think through what we felt were the problems and challenges that we were facing, to rethink, therefore, what was our value proposition, for want of a better term, and finally, therefore, what is the structure that we need to employ to help us deliver that. Structure was the very last bit, obviously, we did. It was about purpose and objective. So this is how we are organised now in a council. So there's me, so long as I have a chief executive in a council, there's me. We have somebody now responsible for that function called strategic commissioning. So all of our services and interest areas now come under this one person. Okay, everything the council is interested in. We have this thing called service delivery. So all of our services which we deliver in-house sit within effectively a chief information officer. And very, very importantly for us, we have this function called local engagement, because we passionately believe, and it might just sound a little bit blasé about it, but we passionately believe to be a great strategic commissioning organisation, we have to be truly connected to the people and communities that we serve. And also we see that as potential capacity and capability that we want to leverage in our commissioning cycle moving forward as well. And then in the middle, we have these things called corporate enablers. And we've been quite through a cultural challenge around that, because actually this is, rightly or wrongly, a completely interdependent model. Okay? So you cannot be a great strategic commissioner unless you are tightly coupled with service delivery and connected through to local engagement. And none of those elements exist successfully in their own right. They're completely and utterly interdependent, which injects some new risks, of course, into that model, but for us it is critical. And the interesting challenge around the politicians, I heard someone in the break saying that members don't like the term commissioning. Our members didn't like the term commissioning, actually, particularly our Labour members, who had the kind of quite an old-fashioned view of commissioning meaning outsourcing. So we went through a deliberate education journey to try and define what we meant by that, what was our definition of it, about knowing what it is we're trying to achieve. And what I'm really pleased about is that this organisational strategy that you see is supported by all of the political groups. So I will certainly, I'm pretty sure, get political change within the next 18 months, but the integrity of what we're trying to do as an organisation will remain intact. The priority and focus may change where we put our interventions, but will remain intact. So that's simplistically our model. So all of that, for us, is our strategic commissioning approach. Although there is a function called strategic commissioning, all of us essentially are players in that agenda. And just to kind of give you a sense of, therefore, what do we hope will be different? There we go. That's